Hey y'all, and welcome to Politabrawl. My name is Brian, and Megyn Kelly put Stephen A. Smith on a poster when he goes absolutely off the rails because he has no idea what DEI is actually doing to America. Let's dive in.
My problem, Megyn Kelly, is how do we ignore its existence to begin with, where it originated from? If this nation, whether it's corporate America or beyond, was exercising fairness and truly looking for the best candidates and not engaging in favoritism that favored primarily white males, then there would have never been any need for DEI, just like there would not have been any need for affirmative action or other things. And so for me, when I think about it, that's what I believe folks who speak against DEI, specifically on the right, obviously, is missing. They don't bring up that element. To that, you say what?
Well, I think it's mixing a lot of things. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with
Okay.
diversity. And if I, were remaking America, I would make sure we had it in all forms in all places. I'd make sure we have lots of different people with lots of different backgrounds and lots of different ideological views running different
Okay.
corporations. But that's not really what DEI is. DEI is mostly focused on the E, the equity, which is just a joke. Equity means you have the right to end up in the same place, irrespective of how much effort goes into it. That is not an American value. That is not something I value or share in at all. That it's like the whole, at my kids' schools, they still have DEI, at least at my daughter's school. And they were asking,
Mm-hmm.
what does it mean? What is equity? And I was explaining. And the woman actually said, I mean, this is just this year. She said, at our new school, to which we fled to try to get from the super woke school in New York, said exactly what I said is the definition of equity, right? To wind up in the same place. And I said, you know what, Yardley, that is what equity is. And so on Halloween, you should go out there and you should work hard and go to every single house in the neighborhood and get a huge bucket of candy. Then you should go over to some kid's house who didn't trick or treat at all, who was too lazy, who just sat in front of his TV watching some stupid show, and you should give him half your candy because he has the right. He has the right to end up in the same place. And then when you go to take your exams, you have to let the girl who didn't study at all, who just phoned it in because she was on the phone with her friends, uh, copy off your paper. She is entitled to the same grade you have, irrespective of how hard you've worked, and she hasn't. That's equity, and it's immoral.
When we talk about somebody being given a hand up, for my God, doesn't that qualify, Megyn Kelly? Doesn't that qualify?
No. I mean, let me just start by saying Barack
Why not?
Obama was a community organizer. That's it. That's it. He had no
Okay,
executive
but he was
experience,
elected,
zero. And we made
Megan.
him commander in chief. Yeah, but I'm just saying, if you want to
But he
talk
was
about
elected.
qualifications to do the job, I'd much rather look at Pete's resume than Barack Obama's. But Pete, yes, he was a weekend Fox and Friends host. But Trump was a Celebrity Apprentice host. Like your stint hosting on TV or not hosting doesn't determine whether you can do the job. Pete was hired because of his military service and his then after his military service, his years devoting himself to helping vets through Concerned Veterans for America and another charity group that he formed to help veterans get their voices out there in politics. But he served at Gitmo. He left Princeton voluntarily and enlisted so that he could help fight after 9/11. Nobody leaves Princeton to
Mhm.
join the armed forces. Nobody. But Pete did. Then he volunteered again to go to Iraq during the most dangerous time. This is when people were being beheaded in Iraq. He was like, send me. And
Okay.
he went. Then Afghanistan, same thing, went back again. And those three deployments taught Pete a thing or two about what it means to be a warfighter and how much of a hair trigger we've had in this country over the past couple of decades, and how neocons are really super
Mhm.
enthusiastic about fighting every single war in every single pocket of the globe without spending a lot of time thinking about what it's doing to our actual men.
But
And Pete was changed from a neocon to more of a dove. And that's one of the reasons why Trump chose him.
There is this insipid line of thinking that if we're cutting DEI and saying that we need our best and brightest and everything's on merit, why is Pete Hegseth in the position that he's in? Why is he the head of our armed forces? Well, the answer isn't just because he's served before. It isn't because he has managed a Fox and Friends show. Not Fox and Friends, a Fox Weekend show, but he has shown up on Fox and Friends before. The reality is, Pete Hegseth is in the position because he has a goal, a vision, and an idea of what the American military needs and deserves to be in order to properly defend the nation, defend our rights, and defend our interests We have got to change the way that we approach recruiting soldiers. We've got to change the way we start telling soldiers, you need to be more woke. You need to be more tolerant. That's not what these soldiers want. As a buddy who's had a couple of, as a friend who has a couple of buddies in a couple of military branches, they love the fact that Donald Trump got in there and removed all the nonsense, all these ridiculous little seminars that they had to go to in order to ramp up the ideas of DEI. This was a real thing happening with our military under Lloyd Austin. Well, guess what? That ideal and ideology has been cut at the legs, and it's no longer a problem in our military. That is exactly why Pete Hegseth is in there to begin with. Also, by the way, the dude leads from the front. So that's one reason. The other reason Megyn Kelly brought up the actual policy changes outside of changing the issues in the military itself. Pete Hegseth has gone from a neocon, so to speak, into more of a dove, which doesn't really exist anymore in American politics. Almost everyone is a neocon in some form or fashion now, either because the ideology had some merit or because there's just too much Trump derangement syndrome. I'm just old enough to remember Democrats being apoplectic about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan. And funny how things change. After all, politics makes strange bedfellows. But as far as Stephen A. Smith goes, he's not entirely off the mark, and I actually understand where he's coming from. Stephen A. Smith is actually a centrist. He has been very critical of the way Democrats have been handling themselves. He is sort of in that same vein as Bill Maher in that regard. And in this scenario, Stephen A is actually a fantastic person to talk with. The dude is legitimately curious. He wants people to give their answers. He has made his living so far being histrionic and crazy when it comes to his sports stuff, but now he gets an opportunity to actually talk about things he's really interested in or doesn't know. I respect that about Stephen A. Smith. Also, the fact that he dunks on the Cowboys. That was always funny to me. But his strength has never been great sports analysis. It has been his hot takes. Well, now he doesn't have to give his hot takes anymore. He has his own show where he's getting people on there to give their different perspectives. And I'm here for it. But we have to deal with one of the problems that Stephen A. Smith is bringing up. Why are we pushing back against DEI? Because the left has tried to paint the narrative around DEI as we're actually helping people in minority situations. When the reality is, it turns out that we're really just helping white women get more jobs in the corporate sector. That's what DEI really has done. It has given white women more of a platform to try to be as inclusive as possible, but that's not what's really happening. The equity and inclusion part, the diversity, equity, and inclusion has to be a little bit more than just a whole bunch of white women running HR departments. So Stephen A. Smith has missed that part of the memo. He has also missed the part where this goes against basic civil rights legislation, that you can't hire someone based on their race. You'd think that would require a whole bunch of lawsuits, and oh boy, I do think a whole lot of corporations need to be sued for these hiring processes, but I think this is a double-edged sword. See, this is where you need to bring up Barry Goldwater. The whole idea that maybe, just maybe, having the freedoms to discriminate in hiring practices might actually be a good idea because it means that certain businesses can hire exactly who they want. It no longer means that you are forced to hire strictly on merit or based on law. You now have the opportunity to hire exactly who you want. So if you want to hire an all-black business, more power to you. Okay? But that now flies in the face of our civil rights legislation. You can't do that. You can't do that, and you can't continue to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion like it's some wonderful thing based on the laws that we have on our books. It has the exact opposite effect. So Stephen A. Smith has missed that point, and furthermore, the whole idea of DEI is kind of un-American. We have always prided ourselves on the ideas of either being just better at our jobs or being first to claim the land. That's sort of the American ideal and pioneer spirit. And DEI doesn't come from that source. It comes from something completely different. It's too postmodern to really function in an actual society. It's better for us to have freedom in our hiring practices across the board. And that's what Megyn Kelly is sort of hinting at. I don't think she'd go as far as people like Barry Goldwater, which, by the way, I don't think he's off base at all in that ideal. And that's what basically created my granddaddy's political ideology, realizing that the Republican ideal and not the Democrat ideal back in the South was actually the way to go. Well, guess what? We have now realized that the Barry Goldwater conservatism is what changed the South for the better. And we are continuing to see that those policies are better for America as a whole. That idea of freedom is deeply ingrained in our pioneer spirit, and DEI flies in the face of that. So Megyn Kelly is in the ballpark of that same answer. I went on a separate rail trying to explain the two, but Stephen A. Smith, again, this dude might be histrionic in the sports world, but he is trying to ask good questions, and he's asking in good faith. Megyn Kelly knocked it out of the park, and I hope Stephen A. Smith learns from this experience, because that's the kind of person he is. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one, and until then, y'all have a good one.